Right, so it is day 121 of my attempt to plant a tree every single day here at my home outside Lusaka, Zambia. So let's get on with it. Right, so we're continuing with our theme of sort of crowding planting to reduce dry season stress. So previously we planted the Carpentarias in under the Delonix region, which is an area where I haven't actually planted any other trees this season, but I've got a lot of other plants which tend to get burned when the Delonix drop all their leaves. And yesterday I planted the pencil tree, Euphorbia tyricali, in an area where it should hopefully reduce the winter sun getting into an area under some quite large mango trees. Today we're sort of going with a little bit of both and a little bit of neither. So we are planting a Livistona chinensis today, and we're planting that in an area underneath the sycamore fig. So Livistona chinensis is a nice shade-loving palm, and that's quite appropriate for this area because it is relatively shaded, but it's sort of like a building with exterior walls and a roof, and no interior walls. So it's quite an open under canopy, as it were. I've previously planted a lychee and a custard apple in here, and both of those are quite shade-loving in this environment generally. So I don't want them getting too exposed when the sycamore fig drops most of its leaves. It won't do that as abruptly as the Delonix, so it doesn't tend to leave everything below it to burn when that happens. And we do also have a cassia, I think, and the bamboo around here, which will keep quite a lot of shelter on here. But the sycamore fig is on the afternoon side, which means that it is in between them and the most intense sun. And so adding a little bit more to this area, just slowing the movement of the wind, and hopefully in the longer run reducing the sort of intensity of light coming down to here, is probably quite a good idea, just to sort of ensure against the leaf drop of the sycamore fig. It won't be shading them this year, but its presence here will be sort of cooling the soil, reducing evaporation as the sun hits that, and it will also be another thing slowing the movement of wind here, slowing the loss of water to the wind. So we're actually companion planting it with something that I can harvest fruit from, which is something we have done before when we planted the dragon fruit up the yuccas, but we're companion planting it with something I haven't actually planted before, which is the Pepino melon, which is actually native to the Andes. So this is usually grown in full sun in its native habitat, and full sun in its native habitat is definitely more intense than full sun here because it is a higher altitude than we are, and it is more tropical than we are. However, I'm going with this sort of moderate shade area because I know that I tend to let things dry out a little bit more than they normally would in places like the Andes, where there is often a lot more year-round precipitation. This can be grown as an annual, but because it doesn't usually set seed, I'm going to try and keep it perennial because it is naturally perennial and it is very easy to propagate from cutting once established. So hopefully, even if it doesn't thrive here, a lot of vegetative growth often happens in shady areas for a lot of the Solanaceae, so then I should be able to take cuttings and propagate them out to other areas and sort of keep this as a reserve plant. We'll see how that goes because this is my first time planting that species. The other companion plants are all ones I have planted ad nauseum already, so we've got a nice little cutting of Dracaena reflexa, which should serve as a marker and should come up a little bit faster than these and shade them a little bit more, and again add to the sort of wind reduction in this area. Then we've also got a nice little Aloe Cameroni, which is the red aloe, which will probably flower as a result of the stress of being moved. This is quite a small one, so I'm not convinced it's going to flower from that, but what's nice about this one, it is pre-rooted, so the amount of water that I'm putting in the base to keep the bases of these humid shouldn't be enough to distress it because its roots mean there's not an injury being exposed to that wetness. And finally we're putting in a little piece of Sansevieria parva, which is probably more accurately called Dracaena parva because Sansevieria does now belong in the genus Dracaena, but anyway, it's a nice little succulent ground cover. It has a little light purple flower. It flowers a little bit more readily than most of the other Sansevieria types, so it's sometimes called the East African hyacinth. It's a little Kenyan succulent which should spread out quite nicely and form a reasonably open ground cover, but still another thing to just sort of slow the evaporation from the soil, keep the soil a little bit cooler, and keep everything in here a little bit happier. Right, that should be everything for today. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you have enjoyed it. If you haven't enjoyed it, thank you for watching to this point anyway. Please tune in again tomorrow, particularly if you did enjoy it. I will be planting something else. I don't know what yet, so we can find out together. So this little guy is Bicyclus, and I think the reason they are called that is because of their courtship dance, because whenever I see it, it looks like a Basically they are two butterflies going around on a bicycle wheel, or the two pedals of a bicycle going round and round and round. But what I want to talk about today is the fact that we're all taught that insects are six-legged, and this is a fundamentally six-legged insect, but as you can probably see, there's only 2 legs visible on the side towards the camera, and there's not 4 on the other side. So the reason for that is that this family of butterfly, which is the Nymphalidae, are sometimes called the brush-footed butterflies because the front pair of legs are heavily modified and no longer used as legs. So a lot like if you look on the sides of a spider's mouth, if you feel like getting that close, you will see what look like 2 tiny little legs, and those are pulps, and they are effectively really reduced, modified limbs. And so the brush feet of the brush-footed butterflies are these tiny, ineffectual little limbs that they hold up beside their head. They're barely visible. I think they are sometimes used in courtship, but they are rarely noticeable at all. They're usually just folded up just behind the head and out of the way, creating the impression of a little 4-legged butterfly rather than a 6-legged one. But they do still have them, they're just sort of hidden out of the way.